Any if Natalia would like to answer.
Oh, sorry. I'd say that the biggest difference is definitely having to practice self-discipline. I think in high school you have a lot of guidance, and in university you have all the freedom, but that's not necessarily the best thing because you have to be the one to push yourself and keep going. So every day I would say is a constant battle of practicing self-discipline, but also not being too harsh on yourself.
For sure, for sure. Maya, would if you want to share.
Yeah, I think like a really big thing to note is um, you as individuals might procrastinate, but your professors also procrastinate in university. So that means when you are coming to final exam time or when you're coming to the end of the term, you're going to get hit with a lot of different assignments and a lot of different things just kind of being thrown your way, especially in first year. And it's important to be able to find a balance and make sure you keep up with the material throughout the term. I think a lot of the times when you get that freedom, you might feel like you don't need to necessarily keep up with material, and that becomes difficult for you in the long run. So I'd recommend balancing your time, organizing your schedule, and almost like keeping a itemized list of everything you need to get done. Um, that's super helpful. And I feel like you don't necessarily need all that organization in high school, but you need it in university.
Thank you. For so the next question is, why specifically did you choose this university and this program? So if you were in the main panel, you've already answered this question, but
Oh yeah. Okay. So I think in Canada, I wasn't really planning on going anywhere but Canada, but Waterloo is like the engineering school in most of Canada, apart from like maybe UBC and U of T, but those schools kind of suck. So you go to Waterloo for engineering, and I chose the nanotechnology engineering program because like I think me and my dad did some research, and it was a concept or a program that would be extremely relevant in the coming future. It has a lot of bio implications, as well as a lot of electronics implications like microelectronics. So I think nanotechnology engineering would have helped me set up for a good stable future.
yeah, for sure. Natalia, what about you?
So I picked Harvard because it's a liberal arts school, the undergrad, and you really have the freedom to sort of branch out and explore other disciplines if you decide that your major isn't what you like. I also love the physics department here. They're amazing people, and especially like as a woman, I'd say Harvard is probably one of, if not the safest, most comfortable place for women in physics. I've talked to a lot of grad students as well, and nobody's ever really had a bad experience, which I think is really good, especially since our professors are mostly male. So I think it's just a wonderful place that really encourages growth and finding yourself.
That's a wonderful answer. Thank you. Maya, if you want to share.
Yeah. Yeah, so as Marcus kind of said, Waterloo is, especially in Canada, is really well known for engineering. So that's also why I came here for engineering, but I came specifically to systems design because Waterloo is the only school that really offers it in Canada. And for those who don't know what systems design is, which is a lot of people, it's kind of like industrial engineering, but it really focuses on breadth. So you get to see what all of the other engineering applications really do, and you have like a really large span of knowledge. And that's so that you can kind of step into managerial positions afterwards. So you're not necessarily focusing on the depth of content, you're focusing on the breadth. And that's very much more me as a person. And I'm kind of like gearing to be a project manager and things like that. So being an engineer who's a project manager, you tend to have a little bit of a one up on others. And that's kind of why I ended up choosing systems design engineering, because I think it does get to give you everything that you want to see normally in engineering without necessarily isolating yourself in one field.
Yeah, that's a very insightful answer. So now that you've actually are in the program, well, more for first year, so what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about it?
Oh boy, there's actually like a ton for nanotechnology engineering. Like, do not trust Reddit, no matter what. Do not trust Reddit. It's actually pretty. There's a lot of job opportunities. Maybe not what you're looking for. Like when you think of engineering, I think of like people that wear a lot of hard hats. But if you're in nanotech engineering or chemical engineering, you're probably going to be wearing a lab coat instead. So look out for that. Explore the job opportunities more often. Like see what other nanotechnology engineering grads go into. For example, some of them go into semiconductors, some of them go into research. Actually, a lot of them go into research. A lot of them go into some more bio-related, like biosensors. So there are a lot of things that actually open up for nanotechnology engineers. And even though it has a really bad rep for not getting employed, especially for the co-op scene, I think like if you're competent enough and you put in the work, put in the hours, you should be able to get a co-op, and you should be pretty happy after the 5 years you're here for.
That's good advice. Natalia.
Um, I think a big misconception is that everyone in the physics department is like a genius. I don't. People are very smart, but I think physics is hard for everyone, and the people in the department just like it, and want to struggle through it to understand it. Something that really stuck with me at the beginning of the year was I was at office hours and I was talking to one of my TFs, and he's a grad student. He's doing high energy physics. That's his PhD. And I told him that I didn't feel smart enough to study physics, and he said, I don't either. Um, and then my professor agreed. He said he doesn't feel smart enough either sometimes. So I think a big misconception is that people are prodigies for studying physics, and that's just not the case at all.
Yeah. Um, uh, Maya.
I think like the department itself is a little bit of a misconception. A lot of people don't know necessarily what side is. And that's really specific to Waterloo as a whole. So if you are interested in coming into systems design engineering, like definitely do your research. Understanding what courses you're going to take when you come into it and actually knowing why you want to do it is important. I think because there's so much breadth in my program specifically, it's really easy to get lost, and question why you're doing this program as a whole. Like I think when you're in mechanical engineering or civil engineering, there's a lot of natural progression. That's not true for systems design. Um, so understanding why you want to do this and what your end goal is really important and valuable.
Cool. So does anyone else have anything to add? Okay. Um, if not, we could move on to the next question. So, were you in high school? Were there any extracurriculars? Well, for high school students as well, which helped you to develop interest or gain knowledge in engineering or your specific stream of engineering and physics?
That's a pretty good answer. Like, are you talking about experiences that led me to choose engineering as a whole?
Yeah, or anything you might have been, interested in or anything you participated in. It doesn't have to be like super professional.
Oh boy. I got into engineering off YouTube, the big ones, Mark Rober, all those guys. Those are just pretty cool. And just seeing that engineers can design something that the world's never seen before and has like a lot of real world impact. You could see it like manifest in real life and you see it make an impact on other people's lives. I think that's what got me into engineering. It's like you can see that in other programs too, such as like life sci or health sci. But for engineering, it's more of like creative aspect and also the problem solving aspect that really got me hooked.
For sure. Natalia.
Yeah, so I actually applied as an engineering major, and I wanted to do something along the lines of aerospace. And I think that sort of came about because I also saw this question in the chat. I did the MITES summer program, and so I spent about 2 months at MIT, and the entire time I was in the Anderton Center, which is just like their engineering building, I think. And I really loved being hands-on and working and knowing that something that I build could help society as a whole, if you want to get super, I guess, philosophical about it. But I think that experience in my high school years really opened my eyes to what I was truly passionate about.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Maya?
Yeah. So I think in my middle school days, I was really involved in like science and technology. So I was on an FLL team for a very or first Lego League, if ever anyone knows. But I was on a team for like 3 years, and then I kind of came to high school, and I didn't necessarily see as much robotics. So I kind of took to leadership instead, and that's kind of where I found myself building my portfolio a little bit to get into university. Um, Universities, especially small programs like nanotech and side, they really like to see leadership, and they like that on your application because it does tend to give you a lot of personality in the eyes of the faculty and in the eyes of the admissions board, because the way that you do leadership tends to be really important. And here at Waterloo, for some reason, we really care about it. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely go into it. You don't have to do like specific engineering things to become an engineer, but you can definitely show your personality in different ways.
For sure, for sure. Sissy?
Yeah, thank you. So I wanna I think for world engineering, add on to world engineering, I think or generally just engineering, I think a big factor is that like I would say like because other people maybe they have hard many people join like clubs and stuff like that. So I felt I didn't get to join many clubs because like when I was in school it was like during COVID. So I didn't get to like in my grade 12 I didn't get to like try if I like hardware or not. But I'll say a good indication is that like if you like the courses, like if you like your science courses, because I think for Wordle, like your top six, you have to take chemistry and physics. So I'll say like if you absolutely hate those two classes and you're like, oh, I just so I like wanna survive through and never look at this again, I would recommend like not come to like engineering because generally you need to face that for another 2 years and then even later on like it's just everywhere. So I'll say definitely see if you like specifically for SC for like software engineering we have a lot of coding, so I'll recommend like try some coding class or coding boot camp as well, like to see if you like it or not. So I'll say like science courses and coding courses are good indication of if you like engineering or not. And I see in the chat someone asked like, oh, joining work club really help with like the application. I'll say like try things like hardware club or like robots club, try those clubs, but also like maybe try some other clubs that like just like as general as like you're interested at. Like I think one of the longest club I did was actually I didn't really involve in many tech clubs. I was involved in eco club, so like about like environment and stuff like that. And I talk in my AI apps that how I want to use technology to help the environment, things like that. So I feel like really like you can try things like maybe show you care and like show your passion. It's like actually what matters here. It's not like, oh, I had to like join like all the like hardware club and stuff like that. So I'll say like definitely show yourself as a more like a more round person than only focus on one side and like, oh, I just like keep working on like one thing and like don't look at other stuff. So I feel like being a more round person and develop all those like develop all will be like definitely helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Marcus, if you want.
Oh yeah, to add on that, when you think of applying, because like hopefully most people are here grade 12, when you're applying to universities, engineers have a couple of qualities that you like to look at. First, you need to be able to communicate your problem to other people, right? So that's a skill that doesn't really necessarily have to be engineer related or robotics related. It could be in any position. Like you could be like a fast food worker, but if you're able to communicate your solution to like other your employees or your colleagues, then that shows that you have one of the aspects in engineering. And also, of course, another aspect, as Maya mentioned, was like leadership. Are you able to take initiative? Can you communicate with your friends properly? Can you follow a plan? Can you like actualize what you are thinking? So yeah, make sure you get that across in your application. Don't focus too much primarily on just robotics. It's more of a combination of all your experiences and what you got from them. So yeah.
So does anybody else want to add anything? Ivy, I know you just joined a while ago.
Yeah, hi, sorry. I know it says that it was electrical, but Western is actually general first year. So I choose my discipline second year or like first year going into second year. So I switched to software and IB. Um, well, IB doesn't officially start until third year, but you're still taking these business courses. I think in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I was like okay at physics, I was okay at math, and so I decided to go down that engineering route. And I think Western is so great in the sense that like there's always like a door open for IB. So even if you think you don't want to do business, you don't want to like you only want to go into like the technical fields, I think it's still something that you should explore and you should definitely still apply to AEO.
Well, thank you for that answer. So, this is kind of related to what you talked about earlier, but what do you think was most crucial to your application that was the most, helpful to getting into the program?
I didn't have, sorry, I, um, me personally, I didn't really have a lot of engineering extracurriculars. The big one that I did was the York Region President's Council, and that one was basically like a student council for the school board, and I was the Minister of Communications on that. So because it was provincial wide, I think it helped my application a lot. Um, I also would like to add that I had two jobs, and I think that also kind of stood out in the application process because it kind of just shows that you're able to multitask or also like take leadership or like initiative in the things that you do.
Cool. So anybody else wants to add on? Hannah. Oh, Maya, you could go first. I'll repeat the question after Maya speaks.
Yeah, sorry about that, Hannah. I'll go quickly and then you can follow it right after. But what I think really stood out is personality. A lot of the times when people ask me how they should apply to Waterloo specifically, they ask what matters. We have to write an AIF, which is essentially an information form that is vague, and it basically asks you to show your personality. And a lot of people, a lot of what they want to talk about is the experiences they had. But when I wrote my AIF while talking about experiences, I tried to really link my journey, not only here as Waterloo and what my process was for applying, but ever since I could remember, why I wanted to be an engineer. And I think that was really, really vital to getting in, especially in small programs. They're looking for personality over everything. So making sure that you can actually communicate why you want to be in the program and why that relates to you as a person. I think for me, I talked about like why my parents thought I'd be a good engineer and my whole journey and why I thought SIDE would propel me as a student and as a future learner. So I'd say think about that and reflect on those topics when you're applying to these things. And don't try and make your application something that you want you think the faculty wants to hear, because they can read right through that. Like, be honest and be open about why you want to be in this program and why you care about it.
Thank you. Hannah, the question was what extracurriculars helped you the most in your application?
Okay. I think like add up to their opinions, I think like for most of the university that like you're applying for engineering, you need to have the personal statement, and like for what we need to have the AIF. And I think like in that kind of since you need to mention you have the ability to like time management and problem solving skills. So I think you need to mention some experience related to these two skills. Like for me, like for time management, I have a part-time job during the high school. So I think that like for the interview and also oh yeah, I'm in U of T, so we have the video interview. So like during the interview, I talk about the experience and also like how they demonstrate my time management skills. Yeah.
For sure. Uh, does anybody else want to add anything?
I just kind of wanted to say what Maya was saying, but I think like you really shouldn't focus on maybe like the idea that if I do this, I will get into like so and so. I think it's never as linear as you think. I just got my admissions file like back a couple months ago, and when I was reading my application about why they took me, it was really interesting to see that they weren't really picking out necessarily what I was doing, but more of like the experiences and the learning that I gained out of it. And so I think when you decide to do some sort of extracurricular or some sort of club, you should try to get more out of it than just like a name or something to fill up a slot on an application, but more of an experience on how has this like extended your learning? Do you have some any sort of like intellectual curiosity towards this like topic? Because I think if you're a strong learner, if you are genuinely interested in anything that you do, no matter where you go or where you end up, you will always be able to succeed and progress. And I think that these are what like the universities are really looking for.
For sure. Uh, does anybody else want to add anything? Okay.
Yeah, sort of to speak to Michelle's point, I think demonstrating that you're dedicated to learning is a really big part. And you can do that through if that in dedication is genuine, they'll see it in your activities and especially in your personality. I think at least with supplemental writing, like you can talk about your activities, but at the end of the day, that's not your personality. And well, like I would hope not, I guess. Like I remember in one of my supplementals, I talked about the Batman movie and some of my bands that I like because those are things that I enjoy outside of physics and engineering and whatnot. I think showing that you're a person, because if everyone followed the same linear path, then there would be no diversity. I guess universities will just be pumping out robots. So you want to show you are a person and a likable one at that.
For sure. So one of the questions in the chat asked, did you guys participate in any summer programs such as SHAD, RSI, and does competing in and participating in clubs and competitions like FRC help?
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I'm like a failure, didn't make it to Shad, but I still made it in Waterloo because I think I had like a lot of other opportunities. It's like when one door closes, another door opens. So all that time I could have been spent at Shad, I spent at another program overseas, like that, like I think it's called Pueblo English. You guys can look it up, where you just like talk to a bunch of Spaniards and teach them English. And I talked about that on my application. And I think they really liked it. So yeah, be a bit more open-minded, a little bit more than just FRC and Shad, but they definitely do help on your application.
that's you're right for sure. Anybody else want to add? Okay, if not, then oh, Natalia.
Sorry. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I did the Might Summer program, and I think summer programs are super useful, like SSP, RSI, Mites, LIDA, Cosmos, if you're in California. Um, but kind of what Marcus was saying, you don't necessarily need these as long as you're being productive with your summers. I think that really shows initiative, and you could even do that through like personal projects if you get rejected from a summer program. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, and then for engineering specifically, how hard is it to change between programs like chemical engineering to civil engineering? Maya.
Yeah, so I was actually the VP academic for a while there for our engineering society, which is kind of the person who reviews petitions. And right now, I'm the president of our engineering society here at Waterloo. So I kind of sit on the petitions boards and things like that, which means I see when people try to change between departments and things. And it is really dependent on what you're trying to switch to. I would say don't plan to come into engineering to try and switch because it's not easy. And it can also put you like years behind in your degree, depending on how big of a switch is. I have a friend who is currently in her fourth year of environmental engineering, and she decided that she actually wanted to switch to mechanical engineering. And this is specific to Waterloo. They told her she would have to start back at first year if she wanted to switch, which means another 5 years that she'd be in school. So instead, she decided to go to like UBC instead so that she can continue in essentially a fourth year of mechanical engineering from environment. So super specific to Waterloo, but it's not an easy switch. And depending on what you're switching between, like I think the example that was given in chat was chemical and civil. That is not an easy switch. If you went from mechanical to civil, potentially, but it's definitely a little bit more difficult. Like the more difference there is between like the courses you have. You could do it in first year, but as you kind of progress more throughout your degree, it gets a lot more difficult.
For sure. Another question was how much detail how much for people writing their supplementary applications, like how much detail should you go into things about your specific project, like your coding experiences, your 3D modeling, or your personal past projects, that in what manner should you talk about it that will be beneficial to applying these programs? Cece?
Yeah, so because I applied to SE, so I think they asked us about, I think one of the AIF questions actually like, do you have coding experience or something? I cannot really recall. It was 3 years ago. So I think definitely talk about the project you did and like give a brief idea about what you did. But I think what matters more is to show you, like many people mentioned here, like is to show your personality and show like a person as who you are. So like when you face a challenge, how you solve it. Like building, for example, building a game. They may see people building a game like thousands of times. It's like not something new. People building games all the time. So maybe say how you face the problem in when you are building the game or when you're doing the 3D modeling, for example. Like when you're doing it, what challenge do you face, or which part do you think is like the most like the part that you interested at it the most? So it's more about the process than the product. Yeah, I'll say it's more than the process than the product. So the product is definitely something great to show, but because like you can, I think you cannot post link. I'm not sure if you can post a link to your stuff and then show them. So that's definitely like if you can post a link or I don't think you can post a screenshot, but like if you can show them, that's good. But like I think they actually like showing them, they look at it, they're like that's cool. But yeah, like I think that's not something that matters the most here. That's the most is that they want to see you have coding experiences and you know how to solve problem, because engineering is like all about like solving problems. So when you face some problem while you're doing this product, how do you solve the problem? Like what's your solve process? I think that's what they look into and to try to see if you can like if you can handle those. So I'll say definitely, yeah, process more than product, I feel. And definitely like talk about if you really build the project, you can actually talk into details about how like which part you think is the hard part and like how you build it. So they actually like know that, oh, you actually build the project, you didn't just like follow a 1 hour YouTube tutorial or something like that. So really like sometimes like talk about the challenge and talk about the process, emphasize on those instead of like, hey, I have a game build and stuff like that. Yeah, that's personal experience. Yeah, thank you.
That's very informative. Thank you. All right, so now we're supposed to go back to the main room for the final ending, and thank you.